Whose idea was this?
You know the saying things get better with age? Well, that may apply to things like wine and cheese. It doesn't always apply to childhood memories. It's difficult not to feel like Marty McFly being mocked by children for using his hand to play video games. I feel the same way when I tell people I like to read physical books. You know, some of my favorite books to read growing up were written by Dr. Seuss. Generally, they had a good lesson for the kids to learn, and they were inoffensive. I mean, not like things today where there's always some sort of political message that has to be delivered. I guess except for the Lorax is the only exception, but that's a story for another day. Instead of leaving a good thing alone, Hollywood decided they simply had to cash in on this idea, because with the success of books like Harry Potter and the Hunger Games, who could resist such a tempting offer like Cat in the Hat? You know, that zany, human-sized cat that taught children that having too much fun can lead to problems? I mean, seems like a simple enough story you could turn it into a movie without much issue, right? Well, another saying, while we're on the topics of sagely advice, one that Hollywood should remember is, leave too many cooks out of the kitchen. What's wrong with trying to teach kids a lesson and let that be that? Sure, it's got to be fun, and not just a Ben Stein figure prattling on at the head of a class while we fall asleep during the lecture, but outright turning your movie into an excuse to come to Universal Studios theme park, hoping to get on a few rides and buy a keychain or a plushie. Then to top it off, you got to drench your movie in so much propaganda and crude humor that we've got to find a moral of the story. It'll feel like we've sailed through the seven seas looking for buried treasure, and all that we get is a glorified pop-up ad to visit the park. Oh, no thank you.
Okay. But what if I told you that we got Mike Myers to play the Cat in the Hat? I mean, people loved him in Shrek, right?
I'd tell you I'd rather have my head stuck in a vice.
Well, as fun as that sounds, and can be arranged, I suppose this will have to do.
Oh, goody. Folks, when I said this was a bad idea, I didn't mean I wanted to take it on as a challenge, but regardless how I feel, here it is just the same. The movie does have its good points, but like my earlier treasure hunting analogy, the sea of toxic waste which you have to muddle through just doesn't feel like it's worth it to me. Before I get too far into an angry rant, I think we ought to point out a few things that the movie does right. The town is colorful and vibrant, designed with a Seussical flair. Elements of the book are followed, insofar as the children, like girls, just want to have fun. The cat shows up, delivers on said fun, but goes overboard in order to draw parallels to the children's personalities, Conrad, the troublemaker, and Holly, the level-headed one. Conrad and Holly realize that too much fun can be dangerous, even though this is taken to incredible extremes, but the point is nonetheless made. The cat does help dig them out of their troubles, and they learn a valuable lesson. Other life lessons are taught, such as treating people as you wish to be treated. Not everything is as good as simple as it may appear. If it sounds too good to be true, it more than likely is. And the movie isn't so long that the audience would lose interest, at least in terms of time. If people would have just stuck to this idea and found someone other than Mike Myers to play the cat, the movie might have turned out okay, but I guess since Mike Myers was the only one who auditioned or tried or was interested, I can't act too surprised with what we ended up with. Now, I get that the sign of being a good actor is being able to be convincing in whatever role they've been requested to play. Josh Brolin does a good job of being the older brother Brand in The Goonies, and an equally good job in replicating Agent K in Men in Black 3, while the overall movie may not have been good itself, but I digress. I also understand that you can't nullify, nor would you want to completely nullify, certain aspects of the person's personality. I mean, a lot of times that's exactly why we go to see movies, is because we enjoy how that particular person or set of persons portrays those characters on the silver screen. It's just when people let too much of their actual selves bleed over into the movie, and when it turns into the train wreck that we usually end up with, like Cat in the Hat. Playing devil's advocate, I would agree that Mike Myers does a fun job in Shrek, but the whole premise of Shrek is an irreverent reimagining of fairy tales, where the protagonist is an ogre. Because of this, I feel people are a bit more understanding if there are subtle jokes directed towards adults. That's fine. However, what's not fine is when subtlety gets thrown completely out the window and we've got to explain things to kids like why the cat's hat grows when looking at a centerfold of Conrad's mom, and what a centerfold is. Referring to a garden hoe as a prostitute, and then attempting to make out with it, and having an underground rave party with Paris Hilton just being herself, and Austin can't stop oogling at her dancing skills. Someone like Brian Regan or Jim Gaffigan would have made a much better Cat in the Hat, but since neither was either interested or approached, this is what we get, folks. Now, I understand that unless we wanted the movie to be just 30 minutes long due to the source material, some sacrifices had to be made, but looking at the movie, go back to my earlier point, this really just feels like an excuse to get children to beg their parents to go to Universal Studios. It's like,
Hey, you know everyone likes Cat in the Hat, right?
not really, but go ahead.
You remember that part in the book where they had that giant Wizard of Oz type tornado that turned the house into a giant roller coaster filled with purple slime? I'm sorry, what? Why don't we build it here so kids can come here and ride it?
I'm calling security.
And as an added bonus, at the end of the ride, you can crap them out of the house like Alec Baldwin.
Please, just leave me alone. Seeing as it didn't take long for this to fall into the black hole that is the Walmart movie bargain bin, you can guess how well it was received, despite earlier complaints about inappropriate humor, considering that a few well-placed butt or fart jokes can keep children entertained these days, and even that couldn't save this movie. It feels like we were doing something very wrong with this one. Especially since the children never left the house in the book because of it being a cold, rainy day. They remembered that in the movie for about 5 minutes before the cat arrives and their adventure takes them all over town, sun shining all the while. Granted, that's not a critical plot point by any stretch. The books were successful because they kept things simple and entertaining, and didn't feel the need to introduce deadbeat potential father figures.
I'll get you, and I'll look like a bloody accident.
Then again, the book doesn't even mention that the kids have a father, just good old Mumsy, who, again, like I mentioned earlier, the cat was highly interested in. I mean, relationships like that never worked out in movies like Howard the Duck, so why did you think it would work here? But, thankfully for us, the two never meet. Instead, we're left to wonder with other topics like, who is the cat, and is his presence in the town so common that no one notices when Conrad and Sally's house turns into a theme park attraction? Or when the cat decides to become a piñata at the kids' B-Day party, the children don't notice when candy doesn't fall out of his magical hat, but rather flies from behind a bush a good 10-15 seconds later. In fact, never mind the children, where were the parents of these kids inside the house watching this happen?
Hey dear, how's our little munchkin doing outside?
Well, it looks like he's having fun out there with the piñata, but it just jumped off the rope and started wielding the bat like a lightsaber.
That sounds nice.
All in all, while the movie does succeed in giving me a few laughs, I feel like my time could have been spent better elsewhere, like, I don't know, maybe tossing this in the trash and reading a book. But then again, I'm the goof who decided to spend $5 on this movie. So what do I know?
Hi, welcome to Astounding Products.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, want to see something improve, consider donating to my Patreon. A couple bucks a month goes a long way. See you soon.